morning. This is Tampa Home Talk, and this is hour number 2 this morning. And we had a guest that rearranged kind of at the 9th hour yesterday. And if you listen to Money Talk regularly, then yesterday you will know we regularly have been doing What Would You Do If You Were 22? And we are actually going to move that only to a podcast going forward. So that was the last episode of that particular show on Money Talk anyway. So we're going to do a few coming up, but not the regular weekly commitment. So we will interview still some high profile CEOs. We encourage you to find that on podcast, download, listen, and we're going to up our game with the CEOs.
What
also
constitutes a high profile CEO?
So we want their revenues to be well over $1 million. We typically want them to be 40 years old or older. We've had some in their 30s, but typically around 40 or older. And then we were pretty much walking through their journey on, how they built their wealth, what they did in their company, what did they learn along the way, who changed their trajectory, what would they do differently if they were 22 years old? And we never even got to that question. So I guess maybe today on Tampa Home Talk, we'll talk about it. But so we had Liza Garcia in yesterday. She's back with us today because in 30 minutes, as you can imagine, we ran out of time because Katrina doesn't talk very much. And she was interviewing me for my new book, which actually went on pre-sales yesterday. So that book is Selling Through Relationships, Why Cold Calling Sucks and Relationships Win. And so it was a fun book to write. Like it took me not quite a year, about 6 or 7, 8 months. Yeah. Started last year.
Take minus plus COVID time, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of throws everything off. Can I go back to what you would say when you're 22? I want to agree with you on having the criteria for the C level being revenue, because I've noticed even just in the 7 years I've been in Tampa, Florida, that C level and those titles are all intermixed. There might be a solo entrepreneur that calls them the C, something of their company, but I have to disagree with you on age, because
I said we have interviewed some in their 30s. We have, but the idea is somebody in their 40s has learned some stuff, right? That you don't necessarily know in your 30s, and I'm not saying we would exclude them. I'm just saying. Leo said what constitutes a higher profile CEO, and that's kind of the demographic that we were looking for that particular show.
Right. Well, and there's no exchange. Sorry, I'll stop. But experience, right? It has to. However, in my experience, and I was a very young multimillionaire, but when I was 30, so in my first tech company. So anyway, and I've met other people that.
And you could be, but the point is, you're still going to know more in your 40s than you did in your 30s.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. I know more today.
I just like age and high profile. I didn't see the connection there. I saw the 1 million in revenue. That makes a high
plus.
1 million plus in revenue makes a high profile CEO, but I didn't think age really was a defining characteristic.
Well, that for our particular show, what we were doing.
Well, I mean, if you want to take the CEO and say, "Hey, you're 22 again," and you got an 18-year-old.
Think about it. So I bring a 32-year-old in, right?
Get an 18-year-old that's a .com Silicon Valley tech wizard that's a billionaire. And you ask him what he's going to do when he's 22. He's like, well, that's 4 years in the future.
When I was 12, I was really good at STEM.
We did have some in their 20s. And it almost felt like silly when I said, what would you do in your... Okay, well, that was 5 years ago. But, what did you learn?
When I was in utero.
So it kind of defeated the whole purpose of the show, Leo.
Okay. I'm almost sorry I brought that up. Sorry.
Oh, we're tearing this apart like an appraisal.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
So back to the book. Yes, we're so excited about this book, and I'm excited to talk more about it because, as we talked about yesterday, we barely skimmed your book and your topic. And I just want to say on a high level, because this is kind of what I've been settling with since we left yesterday about your book, is, the title is very clear, Selling Through Relationships, but that really is the theme and the message of the book. High level is it's about the relation you have with your clients. It's about the relation you have the interpersonal relationship that you have within your employees, with your team, even in the marketplace. I took a picture of the marquee as I came in this morning of your building, and just the way that your office is decorated and the themes. I mean, it really is about that for you, and you attribute that as the reason that you're successful is you from day one have recognized that it's about that interpersonal relationship with a potential client.
For example, the painting that you see right when you walk in. I have a lot in artwork, and I don't usually tell people how much I spend for my artwork, but that particular piece, I paid $5,000 for it. The whole thing was a donation to St. Jude.
And that's your service.
And I would not have paid $5,000 for it unless I did, because the donation went to St. Jude.
Well, you have even
And I like the author, but it was money. And that particular artist that we follow, he actually lost his daughter to cancer. And so that's why he does so many paintings, and does a lot of stuff with St. Jude.
It's so important. I mean, now and millennials, come up with these businesses that are socially conscious and they give back, but that wasn't how it was. I mean, that wasn't even a thing that you did necessarily when, or that was very, very well known in the marketplace when you bought that art. So that's what I
actually, this particular artist, I love his stuff, but it's way outside of my price range. It's not anything that I could or would spend money on, but I couldn't pass that up.
I love it. Well, you say even here early in your book, I had it highlighted, that you say you can create the culture you want in your own business when you don't agree with the culture you're in. And that kind of leads to what we were talking about, is what was your why in terms of, you didn't talk about this too much yesterday, about you had a bad experience. And that bad experience early on is what drove you to, one of the reasons that drove you to go into the real estate business.
Yeah, I mean, so many of you that have listened to Tampa Home Talk, you know that I started on the mortgage side of the business when I was 18 years old. I did that for 17 years. I did both real estate and mortgage for a period of about 4 years simultaneously. And for the last 16, almost 17 years, exclusively I've sold real estate. And so, the experience that I had with my agent when I bought my home almost 17 years ago was so bad. That was the reason why I said, you know what, I am going to get my license and I am going to do real estate, because I ended up negotiating my own contract. I technically organized all my own showings, and back then you couldn't really do it. Like, I had MLS access, I shouldn't have, but now the information is more readily available online, so you can technically search on your own and find it. But I technically did all of that, and when it came time to do the contract, I knew more about the contract and writing it than the agent did that actually showed it to me. And so I could tell when she was writing it, she didn't know what she was doing. And so I followed her back to her house, and I said, I'm very familiar with this contract. And I said, why don't you just let me tell you what I want where? So I did. Wrote up my contract, and then when it came time for negotiations, she was literally in the way. And I hate to say this, but she was. Yeah. And so I just told her, I go, look, with all due respect, if you just let me negotiate directly with the seller, this will be the fastest, easiest commission you will ever make in your life. And she said, okay. And she did, and we closed in a week. Like, literally, this was pre-TRID, so we didn't have the 3-day everything. But my file was already underwritten. I knew the underwriters on a first-name basis because I was a lender, right? I had these wholesale relationships. It went quick. It might not have even been a week. It might have been like 5 days. But we closed fast. I knew the appraiser. We could pick them back then. We can't now. So, of course, I knew everybody that I needed to make it happen, and it went quick.
And you recognized that she didn't know what she was doing.
Well, I mean, it was what it was. So, yeah. And so the challenge is, the agent that I had before that on another property, it had major settlement issues, Leo.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And I knew that, right, from being in the business, being in a bunch of inspections, I could see it. And they weren't totally forthright on their seller's disclosure, and I could feel that. And so once we did our inspection, I said, I'm not buying this house. And so the agent tried to guilt me into buying it and tried to push me into buying it anyway. And I said, I'm not buying this house. Like, it was very, like, you're not pushing me into doing anything. And so just the mere fact that she was trying to make me do something, I said, I'm not doing this. And by the way, I know what I'm doing, and I'm getting out. And so it was kind of like, you're preparing the release and cancellation, or I am, but I'm getting out. And so my thought with that was, if this is a mutual agent that I'm working with, and our clients are being served by this person as well, and she's making me feel like this, and I'm an insider in the business, what the heck is she doing to our clients, like our mutual clients? And so I decided in that moment that, I was going to sell real estate. A lot of the agents I had worked with had moved away. They no longer lived in the area. They were retired.
See, so early on, I mean, in your book, you say this statement, it's out bolded. Anyone can show up, sell a home, but I'm not anyone. I mean, there's the story that backs up why you said this in your book, and talking through this. So important, and it's always curious and interesting to me to find out why someone is doing what they're doing.
So we'll talk about a few of these things, and I know I have a lot of regular listeners, so I'm going to give away 5 books, 5 signed books
Fantastic.
You can call or text 813-377-2775. They won't be out till what, October?
We release at the big Tampa Tampa Club on November 19th.
So we're running out of time, but you can call or text Katrina to 813-377-2775.
And if you want to buy the book.
Well, good morning. Welcome back. 813-377-2775. That's 813-377-2775. This is Leo Kane with Barrel Engineering and Inspection. We're interviewing Kat about her new book.
Yepers. What do you got? What questions you got for me? You haven't seen it. You haven't looked at it. You don't know anything about it.
You haven't given me a chance to read the book.
Nope.
Speed read it. Which is I can't really speed read on a computer though. That's my weakness.
No, I'll have an advanced
your
reader
kryptonite.
copy for you.
I need to speed read a book. I actually need to have a physical copy.
I will give you a copy.
Because I can't really do my page flip-in technique, and that's part of the speed read.
Wait,
Good
say
to
more
know.
about that.
Good to know.
Yeah, I can't speed read off a computer.
And you truly do speed read
Oh, yeah.
because when I was on the show a few years back,
And you handed
sat
me
there
a
with my
physical book.
and you asked me such difficult questions because I'd written the book like 3 years before because you could speed read through it. So it's cool.
But I can't do it if
Very
you
cool.
if you
Okay.
slid that laptop in front of me, I wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to do my technique.
Good to
Yeah,
know.
right now it's only on the laptop. There's no
It's
paper.
It's only
anything.
right here, but it is for sale. SellingthroughRelationships.com, pre-sale as of yesterday. We're very excited about that. To talk about the book, another thing I love about this book is you have all these call them Katrina-isms. We call that in our internal now publishing internal meetings. We'll say there's a Katrina-ism. You say this thing called avoid commission breath. I love that. Can you talk about how what you say about that in the book?
Well, I think I open it right up, right? In that this is more than a transaction to me. That kind of says it all.
Yes.
People know when they're being sold. They can feel it. Nobody wants to be sold to. So, and I think real estate agents among car sales people, right? And some people in those trades have that persona, if you will, that, they're all about the commission and move on. I mean, I've got one right now that's supposed to close. Well, I think it was today. It's being moved to next week. And this poor buyer has been through so much. He has been through so much. And we finally passed a 4-point, finally, which is like all the stuff we talk about for insurance. And now the seller is having a dispute with commission. So the way it works is technically the seller hires a listing agent to sell the property, right? That's how it works. And then the listing agent agrees to cooperate with other agents, like me if I'm working as a buyer's agent, and then they pay us out of the commission the seller has done. So those are separate agreements. People see it as one, but they're really two totally separate agreements. And so now there's a commission dispute, basically. The seller is saying that he didn't agree to that commission, but he signed a signed listing agreement. And so now he's trying to renegotiate commission the day before closing. And it's an ethics violation. You can't. Yeah. So that's a big ethics violation for the other agent to even ask. Technically, I could file a complaint against her, but you can't. And so what I'm pushing to do is see if we can just get the transaction closed, hold all the commission money in escrow, and then we'll decide about it later. Or let a mediator or a judge decide about it later. I already know how it's going to go down, but that's not even the point. And lawsuits are long and they cost money and there's a lot of time involved. But it's really about making sure that this poor buyer gets his home and he doesn't have to start over. I mean, that's the point, right? Like, so a typical agent, if they're closing 3, 4, 5 deals a year, they might need that money from that sale to make their mortgage payment.
Right.
And so, part of the beauty of it, and you'll see this all throughout the book, right? Especially towards the end, the beauty about it is being, just financially sound, if you will, so that you have the opportunity to take advantage of things that come up. If there's an opportunity, that would make sense to invest your money in, you've got the money to do it.
I definitely want you to talk about that 15% and really what your, one of the big ending fundamental you end with the book, and it goes along with that, financially sound. But to kind of stay on this whole, commission breath idea, one thing that bothers me is this, I call it nickel and dime. So I work with a vendor, and I'm very clear, and to put it in writing, this is what I'm paying you, this is the times that I'm paying you, the deposit, the final product, this is what the deliverable is. And then they come back, and I just had this happen recently, and it's a nickel and dime, well, for this extra, it's going to be X amount. And I just can't stand that, especially in a first engagement. So where you're saying, when people aren't clear, with that, or people maybe don't have the experience, or they haven't been used to working with a certain type of company, possibly to a certain level. And I guess that goes back to the message about your book. It is not a realtor book. It is a business book. I love it. You have these sound business fundamentals that all through your book, as I was reading from word one to word end, I could relate to.
And that was the point. I didn't want this to be all about, what a real estate agent should know. Like, that was not the point of the book. And I wanted it to appeal in general to a wider audience that was more business centric. So if someone's thinking about starting their own business and maybe they don't like the corporate culture they're in, or they've had a business for a long time, but they're still cold calling, right? And they're still like chasing those relationships. This book is meant for that person, really, I think. And really, I think even a non-business person could read this. There's a lot of interpersonal things all throughout that we tie it back into business, but you can take a lot of things away from it personally.
Oh no, I agree. Actually, let's talk about personal stuff. It's really fun, the concept. So the concept of the book that came out of our mind map. I mean, when we started to work on building this book with you, our chief editor Shirley Jump, and you came up with this concept of the relationship of dating, and then to marriage, and then possible rebound, and all of that. That you kind of focused on the table of contents.
You have to look at the table of contents at least, Leo. And so the point is, when you think about the mere word relationship, what does that mean to you when you hear relationship, Leo? What's the first thing that comes in your mind?
When I hear about relationship?
When you hear the word relationship.
Banking.
Okay. So that's the point, right? Like, when I hear relationship, I think a business networking relationship. Like, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. And then when I would say relationship for Leo, he thinks banking.
Because in all the commercials for banks, they always talk about the word relationship.
But that was literally your first thought?
Yeah, banking.
Okay. And so for you,
Client relationships.
but for a lot of people, it's the relationship with their spouse.
Yeah.
Right? Or the relationship with their kids.
Which is also banking, because that's where all the money goes.
That could be true as well.
Your joint banking account.
So we have some really cool little titles for each chapter.
The first dates, disappointment is chapter 3, making the commitment. Chapter 6 is breakups, rebounds. And chapter 8, makeup sex. So, I mean, this is the table of contents of this business book, a complete business book. And I really love it because
Leo's like stumped. He's like, what?
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, I was surprised when I read the book, word to word, because I was in the mind map book build that we did, and I heard this concept, and I really thought there was going to be a lot about this. There's just enough.
Yeah, it's
great.
bit.
I thought there was going to be a lot more, and I thought this is going to be interesting. How are they going to talk about makeup sex when actually you're talking about
it's a business
financially sound? Yeah, it's really fun.
We'll go to that chapter and we'll pull some stuff out of it, and we'll run into any question you got. What do you think, Leo? So far, you haven't seen anything, but a few little snippets.
It's something you won't let me speed read, so I can't.
I will, just not today.
And it has to be a print copy.
It'll be a print copy.
It will be a print. I'll deliver it myself.
Excellent.
Well, and the other part of it, as we're going here, that
And why is some of that highlighted in blue?
Because that's the stuff I loved.
That's what she highlighted.
That's what I loved.
For talking points.
And where her book is right now, actually, it's come out of copy editing. And Katrina will look at it again, review it cover to cover. That's we call it our grammar Nazi. Lori has finished that manuscript, and then now we'll go to format editing. After format editing, then we'll print some reader advanced copies for you. But what I loved about it, and so when I read it, of course, I give my input. I read every single book that comes through our publishing house, and my input was. Can we have a few more stories? Because I loved the different cases.
The stories. We could probably do that.
Well, the editor said, I think there's enough, and so I always yield to her expertise, Shirley Jump, in that. But possibly, maybe if there's a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few more people I was thinking about that I don't think I shared in the book. I could probably put in there somewhere. And I was looking, and I'm friends with a lot of my past clients on Facebook and a lot of the social channels. And so when I launched the when I made more of an announcement with the photo that's going on in the book and the cover of the book yesterday and announced the pre-sales, I had a lot of people that commented on that, including one of my past clients, which is someone that I talk about in the book. And so I said, I'm going to connect with you because I actually want to share their photo in the book. So of course I want their permission before I do that.
Yep. So back to the chapter 8, right? Makeup, sex. You talk about, this Dan and Cheryl that had the same fight for 100 years.
Well, it's a fight about money, right?
Yeah.
A lot of couple, the number one reason people get divorced is over money.
Right.
I'm sure you know that, Leo, right?
Number one reason?
Yeah, people get divorced is what?
Yeah, money.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. But you talk about that. And one of the great quotes you have here is you say, get to the root cause of your unhappy customers instead of constantly making up and trying to fix the problem, instead of constantly having makeup sex, so to speak.
So the point of this is the businesses that just operate and throw money after whatever the problem is versus actually diving into what is we keep having the same thing that comes up. Why are we not figuring out what the root cause of this issue is so that we don't have to keep throwing money after the problem? Because that's just the end result.
And it's the conflict that keeps on coming up.
Leo, that would be like you in the home inspection world. Like your people constantly miss stuff, and to keep people quiet, you just refund their inspection money, right?
No, we don't do that.
I know you don't, but I'm just saying, that's the point of the book. And so there are businesses probably that deal with that, right? That deal with writing a check to fix problems. Yeah. And then they don't actually fix whatever the root of the issue is.
Like maybe when you were running your business when you were 22.
Yeah,
I
learned
as an 18-year-old.
There you go, as a 12-year-old.
Yeah, so I've learned a lot in that experience, starting at 23. But anyway, it's Tampa Home Talk. We'll be back in a minute.
I didn't know if that last commercial was our funny intro music or was actually a commercial there.
It's a real commercial.
Oh, there's a lot of
commercial.
Oh, look at this! This is awesome. We're on the radio reading a book. This is like book club.
Skimming.
Where's my wine?
It's the Now Publishing Book Club.
Where is my wine for this book
I
club?
can get that. It's in the trunk of my car.
Nice.
Hey, I
It
got
is
a
a
question.
scoop top.
I have a question for you guys. Well, for Katrina. I'm just, while I was sitting here eating my bowl of Dinovite, I thought, and I don't know if you touched on this in the book, but I have so many friends that are telling me now, hey, and they're younger friends and some are older, but I just passed the real estate exam. I'm going to be a realtor now. And I think it's because, and hopefully you touched on this, there's so many shows on television about the big profits they make, how easy it is to sell, so on and so forth. And if you did or didn't, can you touch on that as a chapter?
I think there's little tidbits of that throughout the book, I would say, but I didn't actually write that up in a chapter, but I did.
You address some
Is it that
newbie-type
easy?
characteristics.
It always looks easier from the other side, right? But no, I don't. It's not that easy, but you don't know what you don't know until you're getting sued, and now you got to pay yourself to defend a lawsuit because it just looked easy, right? There's a lot of risk that comes with it. You have to run it like a business. That's the number one thing that most agents don't do. They don't. It's not run like a business. It's run like I don't even know what.
Well, I mean,
Some people run it like a part-time job, don't they?
Oh yeah, that's the number one mistake I think that a home buyer or seller can make is hiring a part-time agent to sell their property or help them buy one.
That's a good point.
Especially their first home, I mean, literally the people we had in here last week, remember the listeners that I'm selling their house that were in here last week? She said that same thing, that she had somebody that just got their license that was a friend, and she said that they begged her. They're like, I can sell your house. She said, no. She said, I wanted somebody that was aggressive, that knew what they were doing. This was their full-time career, and I didn't want to mix friendship with business. Because think about that. If they're new and they mess it up, now what?
Right. You don't get the house you want. You overpaid.
For these people, we didn't even get to this actually, but the sale of this particular home, they're 100% debt free because they have another home that was paid off that a tenant lived in, and they actually liked that house better and they moved back in it. She was retired for St. Pete Police, and she was pretty high up, like a lieutenant or something. And basically they'll be 100% debt free once they sell this property. And so for them, it's a really big deal. And so, my job as their agent is to protect their equity, every single dollar of it.
Well, and I think, the fact that it's not like there's a chapter about that specific topic that we're talking about now, but peppered definitely through the book are those, this can happen or don't let this happen. Those very basic 101 type things that I looked at, a couple, that I actually experienced in some of my transactions of real estate. And I think that's what's great about this book. So
what stuck out for you that you said in some of your real estate transactions? What stuck out?
Agents that were less than ethical. I mean, just at the top. And I hate to say it, but I had 2 properties that were sold during my divorce too. So as you even talk about how, actually what you say is surprised me. You say something about in the book about that you basically steer away from homeowners that are in the midst of the divorce selling the homes. It's part of your chapter of you don't take every client, and you're very,
Well,
do you remember
maybe I
saying something about that?
need to rewrite that chapter if that's
Did
how
I say it wrong? Maybe I said it wrong.
that's not how it was intended. Maybe that's what you heard when you read it, but
Clarify it.
Yeah, what I meant by that was, as far as not taking every client,
Good match.
yeah,
You say-
we want to make sure we're a good match.
Yeah.
So go ahead, read that excerpt.
Yeah, you say, if I take on a customer knowing they weren't a good match, then that's on me, especially if I'm not asking the important questions. For instance, I have a number of clients who come to me to sell their property because of a divorce or overextension of debt or probate or other court order. So, yeah, I mean, I saw it as a positive. You're making that statement, and I can relate because, like I said, I had to sell 2 homes, 2 residences in the midst of the divorce with lawyers and with different realtors.
But the next couple sentences really dive into that. So why don't you read those? Because this is the bigger picture for me anyway.
Okay. So it's up to me to ask the profound questions to get to their why behind selling, not just the life event that's precipitating the sale, but why am I here to begin with?
Yep. And so that's the point, right? So I'm not, even if it's a court order, right, which I get commissioned a lot of times to the courts to sell properties, and I understand very clearly that the challenge is sometimes there's still one person that is signing it, so you still have to have a relationship with that person to get it sold. Otherwise, it can be very convoluted. I mean, I'll give you a prime example. I had a lady that, we were selling the property. It was a husband and wife. They were divorced. She already moved out. He was ill from cancer, and we knew he was terminal and he was going to pass away. And we took the listing originally. He was alive. He signed it. Then he passed away during the listing. And so the challenge is we had it listed on the higher side. They were going to fix it up to make it look better. And then something happened in her after he passed away that just, she wasn't even the same person. I don't really know what happened. But all I know is, I had referred her to the probate attorney we were working with. He doesn't take anything really on contingency without me being involved in the sale because he knows it's going to close. And so there was a number of things that went back and forth where she was just, questioning our integrity and questioning, really pretty much called me a liar, really, in some of the emails. And so I just responded back and I said, you know what? To sum it up, of course, it was written a little more formally because there was attorneys involved and stuff. But to sum it up, I just said, look, clearly we are not on the same page on what happened. And essentially something changed after he passed away. And at this point, I don't think I'm going to be the person to help you sell this home. So I'm officially withdrawing your listing. You can do whatever you want. And that day I took it off the market.
Hashtag sometimes you have to fire your client.
Keep in mind, I'm already commissioned to sell this. And now they're going to have to go back to the courts and they were changing the executive person that signs the paperwork. That's not the right word. But anyway, yeah, so the point is, I'm not, like, we're not even in this. When I brought you, literally, we went back and counted the number of showings we had, and we had about 87 offers on this property. Wow. And I responded back and I said, clearly I've done my job, and that's just not a one weekend. That was over a period of months. Wow. And my team went in and, we cleaned the property and got it tidied up and a lot of stuff boxed up because there was stuff everywhere so that it could even be presentable. And mind you, she hasn't paid us a dime, right? So if you're going to throw mud already and we've done all this stuff for you and basically say that, call me a liar in an email with attorneys, I'm not working with you. Go find somebody else. I'm not your girl. And I don't mean that to be mean.
No, but
I just know that if we're here already at the beginning and we haven't even signed a contract with the buyer, I know what that's going to look like on the other side of that
Oh my
transaction,
gosh.
and I don't want to be involved in it.
Oh my gosh. You're speaking to the choir here. We've got a few of our now publishing team members in the studio here. Sometimes, and I've heard it and it's true, sometimes you have to fire that client and
Yeah.
you do get the warning shots, the flare, I say, the flare shots at the beginning of the relationship of, hold it, as you said, we've gone above and beyond. We have over delivered. We have you in a great place and you're already, complaining, critical, and I say it how many times? I'll say, I don't even need gratefulness or thankfulness. Just, why are you criticizing or, just
Yeah, and
chill
I don't
out,
even care if you're critical, whatever. But don't question my integrity when what you're saying is not even true, and I've got proof to back it up.
Right.
And then you want to bark demands and say all this stuff. And there was paperwork she had that the husband signed about reducing the price, and she never gave it to us, and we know that's a fact. And then she tried to say that we never had that; it was never agreed to, and she knows darn good and well that's not the truth.
That's too bad.
And so I just said I'm not having this argument with you because I'm not. It's very clear what's going on here, and I'm not going to be involved in it.
Yeah, nope, and it's better. You saved yourself a ton of aggravation. And
So the challenge is, that especially when the courts are involved, that life cycle of a real estate transaction is a lot longer, right?
Of
It's a
course.
lot longer than the cycle of yours, right, Leo? Like you have a customer, it's just a shorter cycle.
Well, yeah. I mean, our cycle with a client is usually about 10 days. Your cycle is what, 2-3 months?
Yeah, and it could be more if it's a court sale.
And a legal one is what, 18 months to 2 years?
Depending on the situation of it, it could be a long time.
So let's kind of switch gears here a little bit. I was just recalling that as this, as we're talking about, selling through relationships, the book, that it is a business book. You've got some great case studies of a couple companies. I loved your story about Chick-fil-A and about their corporate values and how that was one of your first jobs and how it shaped you. There's another story in here you talk about Southwest Airlines.
Yeah.
And I remember, because I used to, be a road warrior, lived in airplanes for 10 some years. And I remember at first, I really hated Southwest, but because it was so different. You talk about that, the different values and how actually they maximized their net revenue and they got people in seats and got planes in the air.
Well,
But talk a little
there's
bit
actually
about
a book called The Southwest Way, and so Herb Kellner was the founder of Southwest Airlines. And if you read into any of his autobiographies or his book, you will see that the number one thing that he did was he treated their employees like partners.
Yep.
And he made them understand at a core level that their planes don't make any money on the ground.
Yep.
Right? So that's the nuts and bolts of their organization and the book and stuff. And so they were able to explain to them that they don't make money on the ground. So the people right there, like in the jetways and, loading the planes and the flight attendants and the pilots, their job is to get that to be really efficient. And the stuff that takes the most amount of time, right? The refueling, the getting the passengers on the plane and all that stuff. So super efficient in that. And the other really cool thing about Southwest is they started in Texas, and originally their competition was not the other airlines. Their competition was the car and the other forms of transportation. So they catered to smaller little, like in Tampa, if we were flying from here to Jacksonville or here to Miami, that was the people that were spending time on the road. That was their competition. That's who he was competing with at a business level. Am I saying that right? I feel like I'm not.
No,
you
you're
did.
100.
Okay.
Yeah, and it is that old Business 101 schooling, even like Good to Great, where you have that company, like what is it, the buses, right? What was their problem? They didn't really understand who their competition was. And it was thinking out of the box for him, for Southwest Airlines to say, it's not Delta, it's not United, it's not American, like you just said. I love that out of the box thinking. And I just want to say one more thought about that. Last Wednesday, I gave a presentation on the stages of COVID and then what we did as a company during this time. And one of the things that we did, just to talk about now publishing for a second, is we identified, let's serve that self-publishing author. And so you have to be that way, I feel like, to be successful. And I want to talk about how, some of the new products and some of the ways that you're 360 degrees different than your competition,
Well, the
because
point
you
is,
think differently.
every business should know who their client is, right? So for you, Leo, who's your client?
I mean, it depends. We have so many different
As
Target.
as a business, like talking about inspections, right?
Okay, if you're
Who's your
gonna
client?
if you're gonna put it to a specific division, a client for us is going to be a homeowner.
It is, but who do you need to build relationships with in order to have a business.
In that arena, referral partners.
Right. Referral partners.
Yep.
And so that's the point. And you know, the right partner matters. Right? It means
does.
everything.
And looking at your business from different eyes and from different perspective constantly, because things are changing constantly. I mean, that's what I love about some of the case studies that you reference in your book. Selling through relationships
And hires. So I talk about hires in there as well.
Let's talk about that.
And we'll touch on that a little bit more when we come back after the break. Let's leave it rapid fire for Leo. He can just ask a bunch of questions. All right, our author number 813-377-2775. This is Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, 813-377-2775, and we'll be back right after this break, so stick around.
Well, good morning. Welcome back. Leo Kane here with Barrel Engineering and Inspection. Last segment, 2 hours, exciting, heart racing. We started with...
You're going to make it through the day there, buddy. I'm worried about you.
I don't know. I might put her out like this hurricane in the Atlantic. Just decide to miss Florida altogether. So I got a question. It was brewing. It was really brewing over listening to the last segment. I really want... like I mentioned it, like you might have to add some more of these to your book because they're so riveting. How difficult is it to reveal some stories in your new book?
So in the book, you will find that I shared some stories about myself that I don't really share openly on the air.
Yes.
Some of them are very personal, and there's a couple of them that are very painful. I shared some things about family. I shared some things about business that I learned at a very young age. And honestly, I feel like, as painful as some of those things were in my life, I wouldn't change them because I think all of those things helped shape me to who I am today. Right. And you and I have never talked about this in depth, Leo, but I can tell that, probably there's parts of your past as well that you don't share with everybody, but they have definitely shaped you in who you are today.
Oh, definitely. I think that's true with anyone. Trauma.
Yeah. But some people's versions are more extreme, right? Like some people have the, what would look like picture perfect lifehood growing up. I mean, I just didn't have that. That wasn't my story.
Well, and that's, that part of your book, and to be frank, that's part of anyone's book. What makes it the most interesting is their ability to be vulnerable and ability to share those stories. I mean, and just even as an example, with my book, I finished it, gave it to a content editor, never drink coffee during a business meeting, and she says, no, there's no reason that you say all the things you say. And so we did stories from the trenches, so she made me dig back and find those stories, and not as vulnerable as your book. It was early in my career in publishing here, but that is what's wonderful about your book. I'm so happy
so
that
I mean,
you shared
I
that.
did teeter on, do I want to share these stories in my book or not? Because there are some stories in there that are pretty vulnerable. I mean, and it'll be open for the public to read when it's out there.
Well,
and you can't take it back, right?
It lives in prosperity, which is what we're always saying.
Yeah.
Make sure your headshot's great because it lives in prosperity. All of these words, it does. And it's your legacy, and you should be proud because it really is an amazing book. I do want to ask you a question, though. I've got to ask you this question. I said, how does it feel for you to become very soon a published author? I mean, how does it feel to see that finish line? We're on pre-sale. We're in format editing, and pretty soon I'll be handing you your book.
It's very surreal, right? Because I don't see myself as an author. I just don't, right? If you ask me, who are you? What do you do? I'm a real estate agent. I sell a lot of properties, and I host a radio show, and I can tell you anything you want in that space.
I have another question for you, too.
Yes.
How does it feel? It's going to take you months to write the book, and it's going to take me less than 60 seconds to read it.
We'll see. I'm going to make sure I dig up some great questions. I'm going to try to stump you. You know that. So.
Yeah. Less than 60 seconds.
Well, we've given away a lot of it, so all right.
Yeah, but I don't remember the last 20 minutes.
But how was it's funny, though, that you've said a couple of times, I've been working on writing this book from January to July. To me and to our team, that's a fairly short time.
It
was February
year.
because, to start writing, though. You started writing after the summit on the last day of January.
You're right.
Right?
Yeah.
So really it was February to now, July, and you finished it, a few weeks back. the idea is we sit across from people that say they've been writing a book for 30 years or 10 years.
Yeah, so that
really
would be
it's
me.
efficient.
Like if I wanted to write a book, I would say, oh my gosh, I don't even know really where to begin, right? And there's so many things that your team has skill sets that I don't have. And so I will say that, writing a book with you guys, helping me and guiding me through the process, you made it much easier.
Well, thank you.
Than I ever thought it could be. So, and there was a lot of push, right? And so that's why people take 30 years to write a book, because there's no, hey, I need you to do this and work on this next chapter by the deadline and figure out what you're going to put into that, and it requires you to have that quiet thinking time where you can write and get all your thoughts out of your head and on paper, undistracted.
And the world shut down.
And
I didn't do it during that time, actually. I was stressing because I didn't know what was
you're
going to
almost
happen.
busier now than you were. I mean, with what's
You're
going on in real
definitely busier
estate,
now than we
our
were,
company
yeah.
was busier during the shut-in time. But we do pride ourselves in the accountability. But I'll tell you, we mainly are very proud of our chief editor, Shirley Jump, and the way that
Shirley,
she's a bestseller for a reason.
Shirley was amazing
Yes.
to work with. She
Yes.
really was. I mean, the way that, she would kind of, because sometimes when you think about write a book and they talk about writer's block for a reason, it's very real.
Yep.
And you think about, I got to write this chapter. What the heck am I going to say? And it just doesn't flow, right? At least for me, it didn't. And her ability to just give me really, and for me, this is the case with anything, but her ability to give me really amazing questions to work
Yes.
off of is what really kind of helped me flow and keep going with the writing.
I was going to say prompts. So
prompts,
the writing prompts and the, okay, say more about this, or this is not in this right order. She's got a great, amazing talent. She's been with our company now almost 4 years.
So, I mean, here's
She's
the
amazing.
point, right? I'm sure Shirley knows way more than one agent, and you've worked with me,
Yes.
right? But to hear Shirley say things like, when I'm ready to buy my next house, you're my agent.
Yeah.
Like that. So for me, that's how I know, not only have I done my job at a high level, but I did my job at this book, because the point is, I'm not any agent. I'm the agent, right? I'm your agent. And so I want to just be that go-to resource that you can ask questions and know that we still have a relationship even after the transaction's complete.
Absolutely true. And I think all of our now publishing team will
you seen the cover?
I have now.
will be part of your client. So, yep, I'm just showing you selling through relationships.
That's a really small key.
It's a
key
well.
hole's-
Notice
keyhole's
the
a lot
color.
bigger.
Notice the color of the nail polish.
Purple.
So we've got our branding colors in there, and I don't know if we have time, but how many covers do you think we presented to Katrina to choose from? 37, 40?
I would
42?
say 50,
50 some,
maybe more.
Well, there's that whole anatomy of the book sale that we work on, but we needed the cover.
Yeah.
You need to love this cover. We say that.
So
to
the
our clients all
cover is
time.
really amazing because it has like these like a royal blue with gold tones, and it's really, it pops.
Yeah, it does
doesn't
pop.
it?
Yeah.
But
Purple,
purple
blue,
is
and
my
gold.
color. Like I always have purple and everything. So I made the nail polish on my nails purple.
Is that your actual hand?
No. We did use a hand model
It
for
does
that.
kind of look.
Did you
a
remember
little bit.
Seinfeld, the hand model? Yep. So sellingthroughrelationships.com. You can see the book cover for yourself, or sellingthroughrelationshipsbook.com. We are on pre-sale. We'll get Katrina to sign it for you and send something purple along with it. We'll have to get something purple, maybe our
So
bookmarks.
I don't think I asked you this, but when I know we're getting some advanced
Pre-orders.
reader copies, but when the books actually come out, how many are going to be printed? Do you know? Like.
In different forums, we've got Amazon, we've got Barnes and Noble printing,
Got it.
Amazon, Ingram Sparks printing, and ebooks and audiobooks,
right.
you name it.
Barnes and
Everywhere
Noble
books are
still
sold.
exists?
So I'm not looking in the other
Yes.
room, but feel free to call or text if you want information on the book, 813-377-2775. Again, 813-377-2775. Even if you don't read a lot, I think this book will be worth your while. Yeah?
Absolutely. Listen to it on Audible.
All right. Yes. And